Hey everyone, welcome to another Facebook Live. I'm your host, Jess.
And I'm your host, Lauren.
And today we have a really great guest, a great live, a really great topic, and that is early childhood education careers. We have a full agenda. We're going to be having some great conversations. But before we get started with anything else, Lauren is going to let us know about all of our Facebook Live etiquette.
Thanks, Jess. So, like Jess mentioned, this is going to be an awesome Facebook Live today about early childhood education careers. So, if you're interested in our program or the profession, this is exactly where you should be. And if you have any friends who may also be interested, please feel free to tag them in the comments, or you could share this to your own profile and everyone can join in on the fun today. Also, feel free if you have any reactions to anything or any questions or feedback, leave that in the comments. The only thing we ask is that you don't leave any personal information in the comments because those are public. If you do want to talk to us and you're a current student, you can give us a call to Student Services at 1-888-427-1000. If you are not a Penn Foster student yet, but you want to learn more about our EC program or any of our Penn Foster programs, you can call our admissions department at 1-888-427-6500, and we'll talk you through everything that you need to know. You can also visit our website, and we have lots of information on our programs there. So that being said, we get to go right to the fun part next. Dr. Theresa Mckay is here with us. She is an ECE professional and expert, and will guide our conversation today as we talk all things about the program, what early childhood education is. We'll start there. Why work in ECE? How to become an early childhood education teacher, and careers in ECE. So we're really excited. But we'll let Dr. T tell us a little bit more about herself first and what she does here about Penn Foster.
Okay, well, thanks for having me again. I love doing these Facebook Lives with you guys. I am one of the full-time instructors in the early childhood department here at Penn Foster, along with Sarah Owens. Sarah is the quiet one, so I get to be the one that gets to talk all the time. And we oversee all the programs in our high school, our career school, and the college. So we are your front people. We're the people that you talk to with your assignments and things like that. We're also the folks that generally we don't necessarily create the assignments, but we do assist you with those, and we do make revisions as needed. So that's just a little bit about what we do in our role. But our primary role is really just to serve the students and to make sure that they're understanding that content and being able to apply it in either their real life job or in the future when they go out in the field. So, and I think I've already forgotten the second question.
That's okay. That's what we're here for. We're going to keep it rolling right
Keep me
along.
on track.
Well, I think the first thing that we should go into is kind of like what is early childhood education? You know, there's a lot of different education programs out there at all different schools,
Right.
and what actually defines early childhood education?
Early childhood is defined by the National Association for the Education of Young Children as any program that serves children birth through age 8. So it's any program, whether it be a faith-based program, a center-based program, a program inside a public school, just a preschool, standalone preschool, or of course, childcares fall under that umbrella as well. So really, there are many different kinds of programs out there. So early childhood education is exactly what it is. It's teaching folks to work with children in that age range. Things that may not be known about the early years. Several years ago, when the brain development research came out, the early years were dubbed the most important years of a child's learning. So we know the first 5 years are the major years in which we have the opportunity to really grab a hold of our kiddos as far as education is concerned, but also in that social emotional development phase as well. So what we do teach, um, teach concepts, but those concepts are not necessarily what people normally think of. So we don't sit down and say, okay, we're going to learn our ABCs and one, two, threes. We do learn those things, but we learn them in a very totally different way than you might think. So we are play-based, play-focused, authentic, you know, uh, presentation of activities where the focus really is on play-based learning. So most of our curriculum is play-based in a high-quality center. And we need to really emphasize that high quality is a key aspect of our field.
That makes sense. I mean, I think just, not even having a full understanding of what goes into being an ECE professional, play is one thing, but playing to learn is a completely different skill set. And being able
Absolutely.
to teach that to a child is definitely, it's not, I'm sure, always obvious. It's something that does require training and the right kind of person. So what are some qualities that would make for a good ECE professional?
Well, I will tell anybody entering the field, patience is number one. If you do not have patience, working with children is probably not for you, especially in those early years, infants and toddlers, because children are testing, they are always getting into things, but they're learning. So they're going to push the boundaries. They're going to push those envelopes every time they can. But that's the learning process. So if you're not able to have the patience to deal with that, then that's probably not a good thing. So patience is high on the list. The other one is that yes, you do need to love children, but you need to love multiple children, which means that, we come into this field and we think that, oh, I'm going to be watching a few kids. Well, you could be watching 20 children play, and there's so much going on with that. It's not just watching them play. It's not just preparing the environment. It is being able to observe and assess their progress in that play in relation to their developmental milestones and state standards and things like that. So a lot of folks don't realize that we do observation and assessment in early childhood from day one. So 6 weeks up, we are doing those things. And so being able to do a multitasking type of personality is really needed. I feel like all of the time that I spent in the classroom, I was really an octopus. Because you have to be, you're diapering, you're doing this, you're doing that, your eyes are here. I used to tell the kiddos, including mine, that I had the whole, like our parents said, the eyes in the back of my head. And my daughter, who's on the autism spectrum, said, I really believed that for the longest time because kids are so concrete, right? But yeah, that's a good thing because the kids knew that I was always watching and that I was always, there and
Yeah.
knowing exactly what they were doing at the time. So that is so important to be able to understand that when you're working with a group of children, it's not like elementary school where they're sitting at desks all day. These are kids that are going to be running around everywhere. They're going to be doing their own thing. They're following their own interests. So being able to prepare the environment probably is the third next thing that I would say. And that's one of those things that we teach you to do in our programs here at Penn Foster.
That's a good point. It definitely, to a lot of what you said, it takes somebody who, you have to have multiple attributes to love this kind of job and succeed in
Absolutely.
this kind of job where you have to be compassionate and loving for children, but also able to stay cool under pressure if you are working with a large classroom.
Yes.
Staying organized, liking the more, paperwork side of it too. I'm sure communicating with parents. So it
Yes,
takes a lot of
absolutely.
skills and a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
But with that, what are some of the rewarding elements to a
Oh
career
my
like
gosh.
this?
I used to send out this little piece, and I should have really dug this up, but where it was like, thinking about all the things that you get from the children. So you might get a pocket full of rocks at the end of the day, combined with some dead dandelions, right? But when a child comes to you and offers you those things, that's so very rewarding. Or when they say, I love you, or sometimes they might even accidentally call you mama. And, that is, people might say, oh, that's terrible. No, it's great because they're so comfortable with you. That means that that they've got that relationship. So that bonding relationship with those kiddos, to me, you can't beat it. Also, when you see those learning moments happen, when you see those connections, like people will say, I can just see their brain working. We really get the opportunity to do that. We actually get to see that. And so when that happens for me, regardless of the age of the student, I say that about my adult students. When I see that aha moment, my heart just goes pitter pat. It really does because, then I know I've done my job. Um, Relationships, I developed relationships with families that I still have relationships with those families and the children. Like my last group of preschoolers are now in the 5th grade. They
Oh,
call me every holiday. They still call me auntie because that's just what they called me because I had them from the time they were born till the time they went to kindergarten. And so those relationships that I have with the kiddos is huge. So, and then on Facebook just today, I saw where one of my kiddos from way back is now having a baby of her own.
oh,
So it's like, it just comes full circle. So, I get to see all of these things, even though I don't get to serve those kids. It's just really nice to know. I had another one who just opened a restaurant back home where I'm originally from in Indiana. And I was like telling everybody on Facebook, I said, "Hey, this is one of my former kiddos from preschool. Check it out." I mean, those relationships are huge. And to know that, I maybe just had a small part in their lives is a big, big reward for me. It really, really
yeah.
is.
That's so, it's so funny because you think about when you're older and you go to the grocery store, you go somewhere and you're like, oh, that was my first grade teacher, or that was my kindergarten
Yeah.
teacher, and you see them out. And there are teachers, like my brother, grew up with a learning disability. So like when he was younger, he was worked really hands-on with his teachers. And a couple years ago, he saw his kindergarten teacher at the store and she recognized him and remembered him. And
Oh,
he's,
Always so good.
28. It's
Yeah,
so crazy. But those relationships and those bonds that you make are really, really strong.
they really are. I hesitate to say that my first group of preschoolers are probably now approaching 40. Um, but but that's okay because I still have some relationship with some of those kiddos too. I ran into one, funny story, ran into one and he's like, "Oh my gosh, you were the director of that school?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "I don't remember you, but I remember that school. It was the best time of my life." He said, "I
oh
still
my
have
God.
lifelong friends from my class in that program." So he didn't necessarily remember me, but he remembered the school. And again, that was huge because that was my program, I owned it. And so that really made me feel super special at that point in time.
I'm
Well, that's
sure all of this, oh, sorry, Lauren.
okay.
I'm sure all of this, it's making my heart, swell. And there's probably, prospective students who are watching this who hear just, your stories and are feeling like, I feel like I could do something like that. And I know before this we were talking a lot about the need for ECE professionals right now.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking to those students, what are the steps in order to become an ECE professional? You know, the people who are listening right now and who want to form those bonds and who are feeling really strongly about, you know, everything you're saying, because I'm feeling that way and I work and, you know, it's not even anything I've ever considered. But you know that there's people out there listening who are wondering how to get into it.
Yeah. So first of all, have a passion and really develop that passion. So research what it's like. So talk to some folks who know what it's like. You can always reach out to us, Sarah. I would be happy to share our experiences with you. But to get started, it really depends on your state and your licensing regulations, to be honest. So what is required? Some programs only require a high school diploma. So that, you know, obviously you can get a leg in there. However, because we are in this, you know, paths to quality and power to the profession kind of thing, for quality, most programs are going to require at least a CDA certificate, which is a Child Development Associate certificate through the Council for Professional Recognition. So that would be a good stepping stone to get that. It's very much like Penn Foster. We actually have a CDA program that prepares you to apply for that certificate. So that would be one way. But just get your feet wet, you know, kind of dip your toes into the field and see if you think that that's what you want to do. And then if that feels like it's a right fit for you, then of course we've got programs to get you started, starting in high school. Even we have that Pathways professional elective in early childhood that you could pursue. And just keep in mind that it's not easy. A lot of folks think this is an easy position, and it's not. So along with that passion, you have to have the ability to really put in the hard work and understand that it's not, you know, we don't just sit down and color all day or play with blocks. There's always meaning behind everything that we do. So, to get enrolled into our programs, of course, you would want to talk to the admissions folks, but we offer a couple of career paths, and then we also offer the associate degree and then that CDA certificate. I recommend starting with that CDA certificate program because it gets you into that content and introduces you really well to the field and kind of gets you a very well-rounded understanding of what's required. Other things that you'll need to do would be to, have a background clearance done and those kind of things, because that's part of it. Especially now with COVID, I'm not exactly sure what the medical requirements are, but most states require you to have a good physical health checkup, a TB test, and those kind of things.
That makes sense. So with all of that, if somebody is interested in pursuing a career in ECE, why is right now especially a good time to consider getting into the field?
Well, the pandemic has thrown us for a huge loop. People have left the field for various reasons, depending on states and the mandates in each state. Several centers across the United States closed permanently, which is sad because we didn't have enough spaces for all the children to serve anyway. So most programs in each state are really struggling to get back on their feet. They've lost good childcare workers, like I said, for different reasons. So now is a good time to get in. The field's going to look a little different now that the pandemic has come and hopefully almost gone. In that, there's going to be some extra requirements. States have funneled money into most of our programs to kind of assist them with this. Childcare assistance fees for families are probably going to increase so that we can get more of those families served. So there's a huge need right now just for quality people who really have a passion. The other big thing that's coming down the pike, and of course everything's always politically based, right? Is whether or not the Build Back Better, comes to fruition on all sides, because universal pre-K and or universal childcare is on the table. Um, will we get both of them? Probably not. We might get one over the other. But if one passes, the other one will follow along surely. So then you're going to really see this huge, I mean, there's a huge need now, but it's really going to exacerbate as this kind of comes down the pike.
I think too, just going back to what you were saying earlier, making bonds and being able to like work directly with each individual, child and make an impact on them. The more ACE professionals we have, the smaller classroom sizes can be.
Yes,
which means
absolutely.
Right now it probably feels like there are so many, children in one room, and you don't get to give that attention to them, individually that you would like to.
Through the pandemic, people had to reduce their enrollments, like where they might put 10 children in a room, now they were only putting 5. And so, overhead and paying payroll and all of that stuff, that really, it's hard. It's hard to do daycare under or childcare under normal circumstances, and meet those expenses and the ratios for every state and that kind of thing. So for me, my thing that I try to push the most is just that, we want to, as we're building back this field, we want to really, really emphasize quality. And we are not just babysitters. And unfortunately, I hear this from students all the time that they're still being referred to as babysitters. And I'm like, that's so, it breaks my heart because we've worked so hard to get recognized as a true profession and a true need as part of the education system. And so hopefully, as this universal piece comes into play, that will kind of balance that out. But one of the things that I like to do in our coursework and when I'm talking to students is, you guys need to speak out. You need to tell people we are not babysitters. We are educators. And so, it's a whole long process, right? But it's so very important to get those passionate people who are ready to dedicate uh, time and love to the children and the families that we need to serve.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, these parents are putting the future of their kids in your hands, and it is not just babysitting. Like you said, the first 5 years of a child's life are so formative to how they, go about their future with education and, what that experience is like for them because of how those first 5 years were. So that is so crucial to a child's life as they grow older.
Very much so. Very proud to say that several of my daycare kiddo folks, which we try not to say daycare anymore, but it's kind of hard because back in the day, that's what it was. But a lot of my kiddos went into the education field and are in education. So again, that's just, a testament to, I really poured my heart and soul into those kiddos, right? For 40 years. So it's just really nice to know that you do make that lasting difference. And I think that anybody who knows anything about the brain development research knows that I tell students now, just don't tell anybody you work in childcare. Just say you're brain builders, because that's what we're doing. That. We're brain builders. And so, when you look at it that way, you're kind of like, oh, and then they start to carry themselves a little bit higher in esteem, because of all the negativity that has been shadowing over our field, we want to try to highlight the positive, and it really is very much a positive thing that we do.
Absolutely. I think that's, Lauren said it right immediately, but that brain builders, that is at its core what it is.
It is.
Yes.
It truly is. Down to the science. So, when every time you read a story to a child, there is a reaction in the brain and it lays down that connection. So there you go. That's what we do. We are brain builders, every single thing.
I love that. So, talking about careers as a brain builder,
Hmm.
there are a few that you can explore within the ECE umbrella. Can you go through those and if any of those have special requirements in terms of like education or just things to consider as you
Okay,
might be thinking through your next step after education and what your end goal
sure.
is?
Classroom teacher is not the only option that you have. Um, Many programs now, especially some of our bigger corporate programs such as Bright Horizons, KinderCare, those corporate companies have things like training managers and curriculum developers for the children. Of course, they also have management, all kinds of administrative things as well. But also, there are things outside of classrooms and programs, such as getting into early intervention, which is really also a need right now in going into early interventionists. Now, that also varies state by state what their requirements are. May require a little extra education, but really a good, solid background in child development is what's needed because those folks work with children 0 to 3. Um, so those are options. Also, I mean, Head Start has Early Head Start, which is an in-home based program where you go and visit and work with children. Even social work can be a step up from having this beginning in early childhood, because a lot of folks who enter social work are not prepared about child development, to understand, those dynamics or family dynamics. Social workers get a good education, but they don't necessarily get those connections that having this little extra piece of education would get you. And so we do have a video, and I do believe that that's going to be attached to the chat, that kind of covers some of the ways and things that you can explore, that was put together by Sarah and Katie Walsh, who used to be in my position, but she still works for Penn Foster. She just is in a different department. But she's also talent development, so she knows a lot about what she's talking about when it comes to searching for jobs in the field. I know a lot of hospitals are hiring early childhood folks in consulting positions so that in their pediatrics they can have some folks consulting with them, because guess what, all pediatricians don't know a whole lot about child development. Go figure, right? They know all the medical stuff,
Yep.
right? But understanding full child development, they're not quite in that unless they specifically chose some of those courses, as they were going through. But it's not a requirement, right?
Right.
So that's super important. So I think a lot of folks are really understanding that they need the perspective of us early childhood people to help them do their jobs better. And then, of course, the public school system is always, as universal pre-K and all of these things come down the pike, and more schools are adding preschool programs. They're adding different positions. So there's a lot of things to explore out there. Those are just some of the few that I can think of off the top of my head. But Katie and Sarah have a great presentation on ways and things that you can explore in the field.
That's awesome. That's so many careers related to ECE that I didn't even think about,
Yeah,
um, like consulting with hospitals. And that's
yeah,
so, I mean, thinking about it now, it seems so important to have that because, if you are a pediatrician or you work in a hospital with pediatricians, understanding, what's going on with a child medically is one thing, but like that has to work hand in hand with their
right.
development and how crucial to the care of a child
Yeah.
to have an understanding of both things. So, to your points earlier, this does seem like such an important time for more people to be entering this profession as an early childhood educator in whatever career that they choose, because there are so many places to work that are desperate and need these
Yes.
professionals, and children who need quality, to your point, to professionals who
Yes.
really care and know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yes. Because, put yourself in the family's shoes and, what would you want to see in your child's teacher at that point in
Right.
time? And I think, a lot of times folks enter the field before they have children, which is fine. But we don't quite have an understanding. And I will tell folks all the time, even when I was in the field and when I had my own children, it was like a totally different ballgame, right? Because it's just different. So, thankfully I had that education background, but there were still things I didn't know. So, we kind of learned together on that. But yeah, and sometimes in those hospital settings, what they do is they actually have folks come in for children who are in long-term care and work with them almost kind of like a tutor kind of thing. So there's so many things. Play therapy, you can get into play therapy, which is like on my bucket list. But
That sounds
um,
amazing.
it does, and I mean, and it really works. My daughter went through some of that. So play therapy, even music therapy, a lot of those things, with a good foundation in early childhood and child development, you really can springboard into something that you really would want to concentrate on. It's not just classroom. We desperately need classroom folks, but we also need folks in those other positions as well.
Yeah, that's like just broadened my horizons, of what having the education background or, the ECE education can open you up to a world of different,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
possibilities.
Absolutely.
So as far as, Penn Foster's ECE program goes, what are the benefits of our program, specifically for people who want to maybe jump into one of these careers that we were just talking about?
I think the biggest benefits of our programs are, of course, they're self-paced and independent study. So you don't, you're not pressured to complete something, in 2 weeks that you could take, a month to do. You can really take the time that you need to really, get that information and absorb it and then apply it to the work that we have you do in assignments. And in all honesty, all of our assignments, all of our written assignments are all practitioner based, which means that they all are going to apply to any work that you do out in the field. So we're not just asking you to regurgitate information back to us. We're asking you, okay, now what you've learned, how are you going to apply this? So a lot of them are scenario based. So we have the students put themselves in, like, for example, the shoes of a director or, just a teacher or a family child care provider. And how would you approach this then as that person in that position? So I think that that's one of the best components of our program, as far as the education part of it is concerned. And then you have Sarah and I on hand to discuss things and we are always looking for new information to put on our learning resources page. So we do supplement everything that we do with learning resources. So we've got videos, we've got Pinterest pages, we've got, links to outside information, just anything that we find that we feel would be helpful to the students in this process. We've got it there for you. We include templates for your assignments. So we give you the basic formatting so you don't have to worry about that and you can concentrate on the content. And I think that that's one of the biggest boons to our program.
Definitely. And all of that support is incredible. I think one question that people might have is, this is a hands-on job
Hmm.
and it's an online program, which could have its benefits because you don't have to, quit what you're currently doing to
Hmm.
enroll in this program. If you do have kids of your own, you're
Yes.
able to work on your lessons after you put them to bed or on your lunch break at work, which is awesome.
Right.
Um, but I would think these resources make it really easy to learn online and to really understand like a lot of these skills and the best methods to work with children, even though it's all online.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I took my master's and my doctorate online. Of course, I'd already had experience in the field, so that's a little bit different. And our students get experience. If you're in our associate degree program, you get experience in the field if you're not already working there. So you have the opportunity to do that. COVID kind of makes it a little wonky, but we work around that. But I think probably the biggest part of that is just that application of content, concept, and actual practical. When you get done with a lesson, you have a newsletter that you can now use as a base when you want to do a newsletter every month, or a
So cool.
checklist for observation or something like that. So everything that we have you create is for a purpose that you should be able to take with you when you leave the program and use.
That's awesome. I mean, I know you keep mentioning quality, and quality has definitely gone into this program and the support that you provide in genuinely preparing our learners to succeed in these careers, because it's so important. I mean, it's so important with the impact that this has on real kids.
Yeah.
That these professionals are good at what they do. So, with that being said, like quality has to be the number one priority.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. And that's what's
awesome.
going to make or break anybody's jobs are probably going to become competitive. And so experience and that quality of presentation will be things that employers are going to be looking for.
That's a great point. What are some of the classes that are involved in our degree program?
Oh gosh. Um, we have so many. We cover everything. Health, safety, and nutrition, which is a huge one. Of course, we have a fundamentals course that gives you like that base knowledge, like foundational theorists and how to apply that. We have a whole course on play-based curriculum. So that's one of my personal favorites. We have classes on observation and assessment. We have classes on administration. That's an elective that you can take if you decide you want to go into the admin side. We have, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, some of my personal favorites that I try to recommend. We have a guidance course that talks about behavior management. Of course, we have a child growth and development course, and our family child care. I mean, not family. Well, we do have family child care, but our family child and community. So that whole course focuses on connections between the child, the home, and the community and the school. So focuses on that global connection, that it's all interconnected, and you can't really have one without the other. So that's also one of my favorites, because family connections are kind of my thing. And so it's really important. When I started in this field, and I had a student say this to me the other day, we just kind of said, hey, families, you stay over there and do your thing. We're the teachers, we'll do our thing. But research has told us that we have to work together as a team, and that includes incorporating folks from the community as well to support us in what we're doing. So we teach students how to reach out to their community members and bring them in to help them do their jobs better.
That's so incredible that that is part of our curriculum and part of, what you teach, because it does make sense that that's such a critical factor. If every team in that child has is working separately, then they could be getting mixed messages, which ultimately can't be great. But when you're working
And it
together,
happens, yes.
what a better way to
Right.
support a child's development.
Yes, absolutely. And we respect the fact that the family is the child's first teacher, the home is their first classroom. What we are doing is supplementing that. And then the community can supplement us in that position of supplementing the family. So it really does work. If you know anything about Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory, it really kind of goes to that, but I'm not going to go over that here because that's way too deep. But it really does, because everything outside of the child's immediate environment impacts them. Of course, whatever is closest around them is going to impact them more than, say, the mass media and that kind of thing. So it's really important to have that immediate circle be tight and supported and high quality.
That makes sense. Well, there's a lot to learn for anyone who's interested in ECE. And we'd love to have you in our program. So if you are interested, you can visit our website. You could give admissions a call. Again, that number is 1-888-427-6500. And you'll get awesome support, like the support you get from Dr. T. So, I mean, who wouldn't want that?
That's right.
I know I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And I hope for all of our viewers, I can speak for them too and say that you offered so much information about the profession, our program, the rewards, the benefits, what kind of person would succeed in a field like this. And I think all of that is so important to consider if this is ultimately your path in life. So
Yeah.
Hopefully this helped everyone watching today be able to make a decision and think more about how ECE can change your life and hopefully provide that fulfillment for you. But that being said, thank you all for watching. Thank you again, Dr. T, for being our awesome guest.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We had a great time. We always do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. And we'll see you all soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. See ya.